Hello, everyone. Have you ever stood at the edge of your dreams, worked tirelessly, given it your all, and still lost? That sting of falling short, the echo of not enough ringing in your ears, it hurts. But let me tell you something powerful. Losing doesn't make you a failure. Quitting does. The world has conditioned us to think that the scoreboard defines success, that every loss is a label and every setback a sign we should give up. But the truth is, those who win the most are also the ones who have lost the most. The difference? They never let the loss be the end of their story. Think about it. Every legend you admire, every person who's changed the game, made history, or built something great has faced defeat. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for TV. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. Imagine if they had taken those losses as permanent failure. Imagine if they had quit. The world would have never witnessed their greatness. You only truly fail when you stop showing up, when you hang your head low and decide, I'm done. Losing is just a part of the process, a painful but necessary teacher that builds wisdom, character, and strength. It's a mirror that reflects your flaws, yes, but also reveals your fire. It's not the loss that breaks people. It's the belief that the loss defines them. Winners lose, champions fall, but they rise again, not because they enjoy the pain, but because they know the value of persistence. Every loss is a stepping stone to the next level. If you're willing to keep going, quitting is the only exit sign that guarantees failure. It's the moment you decide that the struggle is bigger than your purpose, that the obstacle is stronger than your will. But you were built for more. You weren't designed to crumble under pressure. You were meant to rise through it. You don't need a perfect track record. You don't need every door to open on the first knock. What you need is relentless belief in the face of setbacks. You need to understand that your loss is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of your comeback. So the next time life knocks you down and people whisper, you failed, hold your head high and say, no, I'm just not finished yet, because losing isn't failure, quitting is. Let's clear something up right away. You can't lose if you never tried. The only people who never taste defeat are the ones who never step into the arena. If you've lost something, whether it's a game, a job, a dream, or an opportunity, that means you had the courage to show up. You had the guts to compete, and that alone puts you ahead of the majority. We live in a world where people fear failure so much that they choose comfort over courage. They sit on the sidelines, criticizing those who are trying, but never risking anything themselves. But you dared to try, and that's powerful. That means you're in the game, not hiding from it. You're facing resistance because you're chasing something bigger than you. Think of life like a boxing ring. The only way you get hit is by being inside. You take punches, yes, but you're also throwing them. You're gaining skill, experience, toughness. The crowd in the stands may never feel the sting of a jab or the weight of a loss, but they also never get the glory of a win. Only those in the ring do. So when you lose, don't ask what's wrong with me. Ask what did I learn from this? Because losing doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're growing. It's feedback. It's proof that you were bold enough to risk something. Most people won't even take that first step because the idea of losing terrifies them. They'd rather coast through life than take a shot and miss. But the truth is, there's no success without struggle, no growth without discomfort, no progress without failure. Every loss is a sign of effort. It's a mark that says I cared enough to try. That alone deserves respect. The problem isn't losing. The problem is when people confuse losing with being a loser. But there's a massive difference. Losing is something that happens to you. Being a loser is a mindset. And as long as you keep going, you're not a loser. You're a fighter. When a baby learns to walk, they fall dozens of times. No one calls that baby a failure. We cheer, we clap, we encourage. Why? Because we understand that falling is part of the process. So why do we stop thinking like that as adults? Why do we act like we're supposed to get it all right on the first try? We don't. No one does. The people who win in life are the ones who lost, learned, adjusted, and came back stronger. Losing isn't a stop sign. It's a checkpoint. It's the place where most people give up and a few choose to keep going. If you keep going, you're already in the top 1%. Remember this, you don't earn respect just for winning. You earn respect for trying again after losing. You earn it for staying in the game, even when the odds are against you. You earn it for having the heart to say, that didn't go my way, but I'm not done yet. So if you've lost recently, good. That means you're alive, you're chasing something, you're stretching your limits, and that's exactly what it takes to grow into the version of yourself you're meant to become. Every great athlete, artist, business person, or leader has a history full of losses, but they kept showing up, they kept stepping into the game, and that's what set them apart. Here's your reminder, losing isn't failure, it's the cost of greatness, it's the price you pay for progress, it's the evidence that you had the guts to go for it when others didn't. So wear your losses like armor, learn from them, let them fuel your next move, because the person who keeps showing up, even after losing, will always be more dangerous than the one who never dared to try. You didn't lose, you learned. Read that again, because if you walked away from the loss with new knowledge, with more awareness, and with a deeper understanding of what not to do next time, then you didn't fail, you leveled up. We live in a world that's obsessed with instant results and fast wins. One wrong move, and people start labeling you as a failure. But real success, the kind that lasts, the kind that transforms lives, is built on a foundation of failure. Every loss contains a message. Every setback has something to teach you. If you're willing to listen, the problem isn't the loss. The problem is when people treat that loss like it's the end, like it defines who they are. But here's the truth. A loss is an event, not an identity. It's a moment, not your whole story. If you treat every mistake like a final verdict, you'll never make it to your breakthrough. But if you treat it like a lesson, you're turning pain into progress. Think of a loss like a mirror. It shows you where you're weak, where you got comfortable, where you were blind to something critical. That's not a punishment. That's a gift. Because now you can adjust. Now you can build smarter, move wiser, and come back sharper. Your losses sharpen your instincts. They teach you humility, patience, discipline, and strategy. Things success rarely teaches. Take the greatest inventors, athletes, or entrepreneurs of our time. Their early attempts were filled with failures, but each time they took notes. They reviewed what went wrong, refined their approach, and stepped back into the arena smarter than before. That's how winners think. They don't run from loss, they learn from it. Let's break this down. You lose a race, you learn where your endurance failed. You lost a job, you learn where your skills need sharpening. You lost a relationship, you learn what communication or growth was missing. You lost a chance, you learn how to be more prepared when the next one comes. Every loss contains a blueprint for your next victory, but too many people treat their loss like a life sentence, as if they're permanently disqualified from trying again. That's not how success works. Success doesn't care how many times you fall, it only counts how many times you get back up. And here's the thing, the greater your loss, the deeper the lesson, the more it hurt, the more it shaped you. Sometimes a major loss is the universe forcing you to slow down, reflect, and fix the cracks before you rise again. Because if you succeed too early, without wisdom, you'll crash even harder. But if you fail forward, with reflection and discipline, you build something that can actually last. Growth never happens without friction, progress never comes without pressure, and learning never happens in comfort. That means your losses are part of your training ground. That pain you felt, that disappointment, that was life preparing you for the next level, not punishing you, preparing you. So stop looking at your loss as a shameful chapter. Look at it as a masterclass. Take the notes, study the pain, review what went wrong. Was it your mindset, your preparation, your discipline, your fear? The lesson is always there. The question is, will you sit with it long enough to see it? Because here's the truth, you didn't lose if you learned. You only lose when you ignore the lesson. Every time you fall, get back up smarter, stronger, more focused. That's how empires are built. That's how greatness is earned. Not by always winning, but by always learning. Your loss is not a life sentence. It's not a label. It's a lesson, and lessons make you lethal. So chin up, take the loss, own it, study it, and let it teach you how to win on a whole new level. Let's get one thing straight. Quitting isn't the result of failure. It's the result of fear. Most people don't quit because they've hit their limit. They quit because they let fear convince them they've hit their limit. There's a massive difference between being done and giving up. And too often people quit not because they're out of time, energy, or talent, but because they're tired of feeling uncomfortable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Growth is never comfortable. Success is born in the uncomfortable, in the unknown, in the places where fear whispers, "You're not good enough," and courage answers back, "I'm not done yet." Quitting feels like relief in the moment, but it haunts you later. Because deep down, we all know when we've walked away too soon. We know when we still had more in the tank, but fear dressed up like logic and said, it's just not meant to be. That's not truth. That's fear wearing a mask. Let's call it what it is. Fear of judgment, fear of looking stupid, fear of trying and failing again, fear that it'll never work no matter what you do. That fear doesn't show up when you're coasting. It only shows up when you're climbing. Quitting doesn't protect you. It traps you. It tells you that staying still is safer than moving forward. But the longer you sit in that mindset, the harder it becomes to restart. Quitting is not a one-time event. It becomes a habit, a pattern, a mindset. It rewires your brain to retreat every time things get tough. Understand this. Quitting doesn't happen when you lose. It happens when you stop believing there's anything left to fight for. But there is something left: your dream, your purpose, your legacy, that thing inside you that woke you up at night, the vision you had when you started. That hasn't disappeared. It's just buried under fear. People often say, maybe this isn't for me. No, maybe the process is just harder than you expected. Maybe the path wasn't as clear as you thought, but that doesn't mean it's not meant for you. Sometimes the path is foggy, but your purpose is still waiting on the other side. You don't find out what you're made of when things are easy. You find out when everything tells you to quit, and you keep going anyway. Here's a question to ask yourself. If you quit now, what are you really choosing? Comfort over growth, fear over faith, regret over resilience? Because that's the real cost of quitting. It's not just a missed opportunity. It's living with the knowledge that you were capable of more, but chose less, carrying the weight of what could have been. And here's the thing, nobody escapes that. No matter how convincing your excuses, deep down, you'll always know whether you walked away because it was wise or because it was safe. And if it's fear making your decisions, you're not quitting reality, you're quitting yourself. Success doesn't come to those who never feel fear. It comes to those who feel it and keep moving forward anyway. Quitting stops that motion. It turns off the engine. And once you stop long enough, you start to forget what the dream even felt like. It fades. And that's the saddest kind of loss. Not failing at your dream, but letting it die before it ever had a chance. So how do you fight back? You remind yourself that fear is temporary, but regret lasts forever. You remind yourself that no matter how many times you fall, the only true failure is staying down. You remind yourself that some of the most successful people in the world were once one decision away from quitting, but they didn't. They chose faith over fear, persistence over panic, purpose over pressure. And you can too. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be relentless. You just have to believe that what's ahead of you is greater than what's trying to stop you. You just have to decide that you're not going to quit. Not now. Not like this. Because quitting is surrendering to fear. And fear doesn't get to write your story. You do. Here's what separates winners from everyone else. They don't avoid failure. They evolve through it. They don't expect a smooth road to success. They expect obstacles. They expect resistance. They expect setbacks. But they also expect to overcome them. Not because they're lucky. Not because they're perfect. But because they've trained their minds to treat losing as a signal. Not to stop, but to adjust. Winners lose, learn, adjust, and then win again. That's the cycle. Success isn't a straight climb. It's a messy, winding journey, filled with wrong turns, restarts, and but every time winners hit a wall, they don't walk away. They find a way around it, over it, through it, whatever it takes. That mindset is what builds champions. That mindset is what forges unshakable resilience. Look at any world-class athlete. They've all lost games, missed shots, been benched, or counted out, but they didn't let those moments define them. They learned what needed fixing, trained harder, and came back with more fire. That's what makes them dangerous. Not perfection, but persistence paired with a doubt. It's the same for entrepreneurs, artists, leaders, and creators. The first business might fail. The first product might flop. The first book might go unread. But winners don't quit. They pivot. They review what went wrong. They get honest about what needs to change. And they execute again with better strategy, sharper focus, and more wisdom. Every failure contains information. It's your job to extract it. Winners treat failure like data, not drama. They ask, what didn't work? What did I overlook? Where was I unprepared? What can I improve next time? They don't waste energy crying over what didn't go their way. They turn that energy into fuel. They use the loss to build something stronger. Because every setback is a setup for the comeback. If you respond the right way. Winners also understand that success isn't built in public. It's forged in private. It's built in the quiet hours when no one is watching. It's built in the recovery, the discipline, the rebuilding. And the only way to reach that level is by enduring some losses along the way. The win is just the final scene. The real work happens behind the curtain. You have to stop waiting for things to be perfect before you go again. You have to stop thinking one loss disqualifies you. It doesn't. It qualifies you because it means you're learning, you're evolving, you're becoming more than who you were. And that's what winners do. They evolve, they adapt, and then they dominate. Think of every comeback story you've ever admired. It didn't start at the top. It started at rock bottom, with rejection, failure, or defeat. But what made those stories great is that the person didn't quit. They adjusted, they trained harder, they doubled their focus, they built their way back from nothing, and that made the win even more powerful. You can do the same. You're gonna face moments where it feels like everything is falling apart, where quitting would be easier than pushing forward, but in those moments, you have to remind yourself, this is where winners are made, not in the wins, but in how they handle the loss. Are you willing to lose, to learn, to adjust? Because if you are, the win will eventually come, and it will mean more than you ever imagined. Not because you never fought, but because you never stayed down. This is how greatness is earned. This is how real success is built. Winners aren't perfect. They're persistent. They're adaptable. They don't break. They don't break. They bend. They shift. They evolve. And they always come back stronger. So when you lose, don't walk away. Don't crumble. Don't complain. Lean in. Learn. Adjust. Then go again. Because that's what winners do. And that's what you were built to become. So now you know losing isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It's your coach. It's the rough edge that sharpens your blade. If you've lost, good. That means you were brave enough to try. That means you were in the game. That means you haven't been playing it safe, hiding behind comfort and fear. But quitting, that's the real threat. Quitting is the silent killer of dreams. It's the decision that says, I'd rather protect my ego than risk growth. But you're not here for safety. You're here for greatness. You're here to rise, to fight, to stretch, and to become something more than you were yesterday. The people who win in this life aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who fall 100 times and get back up 101. So if life has knocked you down, take a breath and rise again. If you've failed, good. That means you're learning. If you've lost, better. That means you're in the arena. And if you're thinking about quitting, don't. Not now. Not like this. Because didn't come this far just to walk away. You came to finish what you started. You came to rise, not retreat. You came to build, not break. You came to prove that even in the face of fear, doubt, and defeat, you refuse to quit. Losing isn't failure. Quitting is. And you're not a quitter. You're a warrior. So get back up, refocus, rebuild, and rise. Thunk.